So we're trying to start a new trend in conferences in Doha and begin on time and end on time. So in that efficient spirit, let me welcome the speakers and the moderator of our third panel. Fاريلي will be moderating this panel as well as the first one, and she will introduce her speakers as before. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Lovely to see you again, those who were at the earlier panel. For those of you who were not, my name is Fárìlí. I am the Design Doha Biennial Exchange Curator. That means that I'm curating an exchange among 4 designers of Qatar and 4 designers of Morocco over the next year. And you will all come back in October to see an exhibition of their work here in Doha. For today's panel, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by 3 really exceptional individuals. Giovanna Zheng, please come to the stage, Giovanna. Giovanna is the co-founder of one of the most remarkable places in China you have to go. It's the Rong Craft Library in Hangzhou, in a rural village outside Hangzhou. And Giovanna and her team have committed their practice and this library to supporting traditional craft across China through intersections with the work of contemporary designers within China and beyond. Thrilled to have you here, Giovanna. Thank you for coming. Okay. And we're also joined by the designer from Lebanon, Adrien Pepe. Adrien, come to the stage. Adrien is one of the designers whose work is included in Arab Design Now, so I encourage everybody here to go and see his work immediately after this panel. And finally, I welcome Sara Oehaddo. Sara is a contemporary artist who engages in a very cross-disciplinary way and also really has a practice that's based a lot in research and has been doing a lot of work recently on the intersections of craft and her practice. Sara is also one of the designers, artists, makers from Morocco who is participating in the exchange program. So thank you all. Okay. So a large part of the focus of this panel is obviously on ways in which craft and design intersect, cross over, support each other, challenge each other. So actually, I'd love to start very simply by asking each of you how you came to craft as part of your practice and your life work. And I'll start with you, Giovanna.
I am a child of a craftsman, so I grew up in a metal workshop, eating little metals. I guess this is the start. I studied design, and I was always in between. And when I studied, it was not very popular to be something in between, like you're an artist, or you're a craftsman, or a designer. But I guess now is quite normal to find yourself, you're completely in between. Then I've tried doing design as a part of my practice, always reflecting the artistic vision a little bit more, and always trying to do some craft. And then I always am good with the craft, with the fingers, doing things by hand. Then it's a circle that's never really had a exact beginning, but somehow always finding the space in its version. I don't know.
But just one add-on question. I should have maybe phrased this as, how did you through your practice get to craft in the place that you are? Because you're obviously living in China, and it's a very different craft context, I'm sure, than what you grew up in. So how did you get specifically to a place of craft within the context of China that you're working?
First, I met my husband. He's Chinese, and we came to China with the idea to do something with the crafts. So it was intentional research in 2010 that led to this library which we are running now, and it started as something from a really basic interest of design necessity. It is not enough that I'm a designer and that I'm looking at design. I need to make this thing from something. So design itself was never enough. It has to be made of material to be made of material, I had to know what's the possibility of this material, what he can do, and what other people are doing with it. So it's root. So we try to find this root for each time we see some material, and how can it root be implemented in many different ways. So 2010 was probably the year.
So it's, knowledge of the material. Adrien, how would you say that you, through your practice, arrived at craft, and again, craft in the context that you work?
The present context. Let me maybe start from a broader perspective of why I guess I find craft to be quite significant. I think in the process of entering, this format of going to art school, I always felt in entering it that there was this severe disassociation to matter. It was all very abstract and conceptual, and I think I was lacking a way of engaging with my surroundings by engaging through my dexterity with my body. And I think that this is where I started to see that the only moments in which you could do that were in pre-industrial modes of production, which you fall into craft, and as you imprint your body onto the matter, and it alchemizes the matter into something. So then this is where I became super intrigued. My access point was through fibers, so either plant or animal fibers, mainly natural fibers until now. And over the past 5 years, I moved to Lebanon like 10 years ago, and in the last 5 years, I discovered the fat-tailed Awassi sheep, which is a sheep that's been in the region for like 5,000 years. And I've become this sort of sheep ambassador through my work. I constantly, not just working with its wool, working with its skin, its sinews. I mean, there's such a rich history about the engagement of this animal, not just when it comes to its edible parts, but its inedible parts as they're alchemized into object.
Wow, wonderful, thank you. And Sara, I mean, you were trained very much as a designer, right? And you started your career, I believe, in Lancôme. And how did you get to a place where you're working as a really practicing artist that's so deeply embedded with artisanship and craft?
I think on my side, well, first, my family is a family of craft makers and farmers. Like on my father's side, they're all farmers. And my mom's side, farmers and craft women. And I think farming and craft are completely embodied. It works together. So I grew up in that environment, but I have to say that I always fought against it. Like I never thought I would end up in the field, because we were a family where, well, my parents thought I would be a doctor, whatever. And I think I grew up fighting that and having that as a side thing, not something. So then even when I studied, art and craft were far, and that's why I've chosen, I guess, industrial design and architecture, thinking that's probably a better way to live. But at the end, my nature took over. And so I have also a year, like a very specific year. It was 2013. I went back to Morocco, and I went back with this idea of finding my own Morocco. As I'm French-Moroccan, I grew up in France, in the family of immigrants, fighting all of that. And so I went back, and that's when I understood that I was fighting something that was supernatural to me. And that's when everything then happened, I guess.
I think what's really incredible about a show like Arab Design Now, and Rana's panel, which just happened, people were talking about craft and how it seems to be a connector within the context of design in the region, is that we can look at the work downstairs and it's so incredibly beautiful, and the work that comes out of your library and your work, Sarah. And it's hard to see that it's also quite challenging, right, to bring together two disciplines and two languages of making, such as craft and design or artistic practice. So I wonder if you could share some of your observations about those challenges, kind of the crunchy moment of coming together with makers of different disciplines, and how you've been able to navigate through those, perhaps with a single example or more generally. Adrien, do you want to start? Do you want me to repeat the question? Okay.
I was ruminating.
What are some of the challenges of collaborations that bring together your work and the craftspeople that you work with, if you do, that you've observed through your practice?
I think many times I find that the challenges are finding people that still do it.
Okay.
You know, the thing about it is that, I don't know, I mean, because I'm so obsessed with the fat-tailed Awasi sheep, I've kind of understood like the breadth of artifact that actually comes from its biomass. And there's certain craft processes that are just so specific, and you can only interact with them through text or these formats. So then how do you begin to even reanimate that, or, you know, teach a person that is entering a craft life, or when you find the craft person, how do you preserve that? Because there's no, there's more and more you see less and less of a generational handover of the knowledge. So how can you capture that gesture so that it can continue? Which is why, I mean, at least within my practice, I do engage with a lot of craftspeople, collaborate with craftspeople, but at the end of the day, I think it's quite important to actually engage within the meditative act of craft processes. And I think Gandhi I was just in Jaipur and I was reading about Gandhi and like cotton spinning and this idea, this act of the meditative act of spinning as an act of resistance, which I thought was so beautiful. And I think that there is so much power in engaging with that physicality, because you can enter within a trance state through repetition and endless hours.
Jovana.
Well, I have many examples, because we do research about the craft. So each year when we think about one material, we cross whole China, what this material can do and what material possibility it is. But maybe a very interesting example is our first example, very first one, because on that one we learn every kind of secret of how to think about when it's craft. We came to one village and we started learning paper umbrella, how to make a paper umbrella. So this object came as naturally as the first one, because in our region in China, this is the very specific paper oil umbrella, which is there for years, and it's been produced by millions by the same craftsmen and in maybe 60s, 70s. And then nowadays, when we were there, 2010, he was just making 20 per year, just as a decorative object. So we asked the whole team of 4 craftsmen to start making it again, and we will learn, just for us, just our studio. Go there and we learn. We stay there in a village. We lived there for a few months, and we were learning how to make a paper umbrella. This is a very complicated process, which is involved about 70 steps of when to cut bamboo, what year this bamboo it is, what age, then marking it, slicing it, making bones, making paper, prints, gluing. So it's like big process. And finally, when we learned this thing, we didn't have idea that we are going to make something else. We were thinking all the time, we are here to improve handcraft. How silly. It's absolutely impossible. This is something that you can't do. We tried bending it, maybe using slicing other kind of bamboo or fabricated materials. All these things failed very badly. But what we did, we pick up few parts of this craft and created one chair. It does not look like umbrella at all. It's contemporary chair made of paper, but it uses several crafts that was used as a making of bamboo umbrella. So we just realized, oh wow, well, this is another conclusion, another way to see it. If you can make umbrella to become a chair, then voila, you can do anything. You can take any craft and separate it into process. And why not mixing it? And why not interacting with each other in a different way? Why not switching the ways? So this is something for us, how we think about it, and we call it future tradition. It's just a way to bring the craft in another dimension.
And Sara?
So my work is about the challenges, I think. It's all based on the challenges. And so to me, going and meeting with craft community, with this idea of collaborating, is based on the challenges I'm gonna find in the context. And it's so many challenges. It goes back to the lack of history, knowledge about their own history, education. So the whole idea, I think, is to empower them. I think since I've begun meeting with all these craft communities, I have noticed the impoverishment of their own culture. They know really less and less about what they're doing. And so that's where most of my challenge lies, I would say. So then it's about knowing back your resources, your environment, going back to where your practice come from in history, connecting them together, rethink your gesture, where it comes from. All of those questions, which kind of seems simple question, but in fact, in the field, you will see very quickly that it's totally forgotten or blurred, or they know things, but it's fragmentalized. So I take that as starting point for exercises, and that's how I build up my creative protocol, to try to find tools to empower them again on those specific points that are challenges for their context. So it has so many nature. Sometimes it's geography. Sometimes it's politics, like a village political status that is blocking everybody. And that's how I work. So it's, and the latest one that I would say is the one I've learned lately is about the resources. Nowadays, the craft community in Morocco I collaborate with most of the time, they don't know how to use their own resources. Everything is imported. They don't know where it comes from. So the knowledge of what you have and how you can work with that is so important for your own heritage, I would say. So nowadays I'm really working a lot with the question of the local resources, machines. Yeah, it can be anything, but I think, yeah.
I think also all three of you in some way evoked a sense of responsibility, right? I mean, you're deeply engaging with the specific sheep and the traditions around the sheep, heritage, knowledge. You're obviously engaging, Sarah, in your work in a long-term way with communities of ceramic makers and now glass, textiles. Jovana, you know, in many ways, the archive holds a responsibility to hold this knowledge. So I'm just curious about your own practices and how you manage that sense of responsibility for the craft that you're referencing or working in relationship to. Like, is that a heavy burden that you bear? And how do you kind of manage that in terms of your own working practice? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you have a body of work that you're creating, that you're showing in specific exhibitions, and you also, Adrien, and you're working with designers to create objects. So, you know, I'd just love to hear you talk a little bit about how you navigate that sense of responsibility to the artisan and craft communities that you engage with. Whoever wants to start. I'm not going to pick on you.
Okay. So I think the sense of responsibility is one very small. What I feel is a sense of happiness doing it. So this is how it's go on and on. As our design studio, when I'm an artist, designer, craftsman, whatever, I feel responsible using some of amazing materials I have found as a researcher and as my other personality, a design library researcher, I feel that I have to spread this knowledge with people, that I have to create some kind of projects, guest residency. We have 2 exhibitions who are going on for past 9 years. So one is a wrong exhibition. So each year we have one topic. We research this topic and for 1 year, and then we show it to invited artists. And they have another year to make something from this. And this is Chinese artist, and later on we will show this work to abroad. We show it in Paris, in Louvre, in Milan many times, in Swiss, in Athens, Hong Kong, many places. So this is interesting exchange. And another one is a guest residency. So we ask with collaboration with other foundations in Europe or in other parts of the world, we invite artists who from abroad, who never been to China, who never know these crafts, to come there and spend 1 month with us in a village, in a library, and travel around, make something what they want, whatever. So it's been a community of about 150 people already, or even more. And it's growing. So this exchange is very interesting for us. And then we don't feel so much responsible for it, but we really feel happy. So there is each month there is 3 artists going on around and being overly excited. I'm going to see this weaving craft, or I'm going to see the shadow puppet craft. So they can pick up anything. We can give them any kind of advice, what they want to do, and then we can even tell them, oh no, you can try many other materials beside this thing, what you already have in mind, because it's so many of these things. So this is about responsibility, and major is excitement and happiness of doing these things.
So you're kind of managing responsibility by sharing, and sharing not just locally but also internationally.
Yeah, let's say it like this.
And creating awareness of these great traditions and the possibilities for others to engage.
Yeah.
Okay. Adrien, you're ready, I can tell.
I mean, I was just thinking about this notion of responsibility, like who to be responsible to. And I think that at least within my practice, I feel that my sense of responsibility is actually to the other than human that's actually providing the raw material. I think that so much can be learned about how we treat plants and animals, and how that essentially transfers of how we treat each other. And I think that the gentleness of the extraction, the ritual around sacrifice, like all of these are modalities that give a permissibility and a sense of respect within that relationship, within that entanglement with other species that have been over thousands of years grown to kind of live alongside humanity. So then I think that is where a huge sense of responsibility is owed, because that's the thing that most of the time we're not thinking about. Yes.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, often when you engage with knowledges and materials of craft, you understand that some of the unlockers for a more sustainable way of being on this planet are located in practices and rituals of living that the craft knows, understands. Sarah?
It's a good question, because I think at first I very quickly thought about the responsibility I would have with all those communities, knowing that I'm going to engage for a long time, and I'm going to push them. I'm going to push all the boundaries that they are used to. So I was a little scared at the beginning, I have to say, like by the amount of what if everything stops and I can't continue, and they're hoping us to continue. So very quickly in the protocol of creation and the collaborative one, I thought of that question as also an exercise, like how can we all own our responsibility, and so teach together how to be responsible for our own. Like I'm gonna try to answer your questions, like the art piece we're gonna make is going to try to provide us the tools we need to become autonomous. That's the core of my practice. But at the same time, I will try to find a way to teach us together, we will try to find a way to teach us together how to be independent and not too much codependent. And so everybody can think about its own responsibility in the process for everything, for what we're using, the piece itself, and if the art, I don't know, because that's something I think a lot about, like if tomorrow I don't sell anything anymore, what happens? So the way I try, because it's still up now, to answer the question is that, okay, if everything stops, what did I leave you so you can go on without me? At least a little bit. That's why I was talking about the resource challenges, because to me that's one of the strongest thing you can give. So yeah, this is how I manage responsibility, I would say.
And we've talked a lot about your practices which without images. So I wonder if you could paint a picture for us, each of you, of a project, just one initiative or project or work that you developed that you really felt like, yes, that was really my practice and my work with these communities, or this knowledge of craft really coming together really beautifully and symbiotically.
I work as a designer for the Hermes window displays. So in there I have full freedom to use any material that I can. And in these projects I have touched so many interesting materials that probably in other projects I would not have enough finance to even start this kind of thinking, because dealing with silk threads that is hand turned in a one little thing called ronghua. I even don't know an English name for it. But I guess maybe shadow puppets were for me like most amazing one. We brought in our studio to village the daughter of the master of the shadow puppets, and they are making it with some kind of leather, which is processed many times and then becomes very transparent, because they use colors and then they light the candle and then the shadows will be displayed on it. It's very nice craft. So we created a completely different kind of thing, but using same material. Our shadow puppets were 3D. They were not flat surface, but we used all the techniques of the original ones, all the original paint, all the original knots, how they making it movable. I was enjoying these things a lot, because that then maybe really playful, made it as a playful project, because we were creating a human-size alphabet puppets, creating messages on the facade of the Hermes displays, and they were like, "Do you have fun?" And you're just seeing from the other side, you can see it very clearly. Something that is as a body language. I don't know. It was something that's, but this kind of recipe or situation repeated so many times, because during all of our projects we actually seek this moment. How can we play even better with some craft, and how can we enjoy it so badly?
So I guess primarily a lot of my work comes in the format of tapestries. However, I think that the culmination of a lot of the type of or the message that I like to communicate through the work happened last year for the Sharjah Triennial, in which I was given the space of the slaughterhouse that was used right after Eid al-Adha. So then there was and I was wanting to work with the skin of the animal, because, it struck me, there was an image that struck me of this animal float from an Assyrian warrior in this bas-relief in the British Museum. Essentially, he's carrying an animal and traveling the river as he's inflating it. And I thought, oh, how interesting. And then you look at the bagpipe, which is an instrument that comes from the region, although we associate it to Scotland, but it's just the emptied out animal. And then within the legs, you put the different instruments and you blow into it and you make music, the bagpipe music. So then I thought, how beautiful would it be to make this humongous inflatable structure that enters this place of trauma, which is the slaughterhouse, and just takes up space like a blowfish. You know, a blowfish, once it feels threatened, it blows up. And it blows up is a way not to fit in the mouth of its predator. So then I just wanted to kind of apply that narrative of the blowfish, give it to the biomass of the awasi, and let it take over the space, preventing entrance, disturbing, imposing itself, and kind of redeeming itself from this narrative of what we consider to be a slaughterhouse, which is the space that removes the ritual of sacrifice. So then, I don't know, I thought that was, to paint you a picture of the work.
Okay. And Sarah, this is awesome. It's like a imagined exhibition I'm sitting in now. Great, Sarah.
Check my Instagram.
I don't know. There is. It's so different. I would probably tell you about the very first one because I think it's the one that's finished now. It was 10 years ago. It's the embroidery project that started in North Morocco with the class. So in Morocco, we have those governmental school of craft. And in North Morocco, there is one of the last class that learn very specific embroidery from the north, from Tétouan, the city in North Morocco. And so the ladies are trained from the age of 12 to 20 years old to embroider always the same thing. And so they would embroider their wedding set for years and master it. And once it's super well done, they get married. And there is no education of how to move forward from that. Okay. So I love the space, because then it's the embroidery stops. It also stops in the way that creatively it's always the same thing they repeat for 5 to 7 years. And I went there thinking that they would be super happy to meet with me and engage and do something completely new in fashion or whatever. And it was not the case at all. Like, the embroidery has such a social power. When you master that type of embroidery, you're in the society, it means something. And in the city, it was super powerful. So then it took, I think it's one of the longest workshops I've ever done. It took us almost 10 years. So then I engaged with the class for 1 year to understand, like, why there is not more expectation for that embroidery, why we couldn't have in Morocco something so fashionable with what they're doing. And among a class of 30 girls, 3 would really engage with me, only 3, they would be interested. So I've also learned a lot about, sometimes you project something on people or and it's not there. That's very fun. That was a good lesson for me. Also, and then with the 3 girls, I had to listen to them and to listen to what they really wanted to learn. And that's how, even for me, back then, I really learned what I also really wanted to do. Like, I wanted to push them and find out and evolve as they wish. And me, through that path, being able to create something that I would also like and learn. And so that's how I've written my very first protocol. And so we did like 3 or 5 exercises through 5 years. So we began to embroider fashionable items, and then they asked for different techniques. So we began to embroider other type of objects. And at the end, they asked me to, because it was all hand embroidery, they asked me to learn the machine. And that's a turning point, because like, they ask me, but I know nothing about embroidery. So then I had to find the people, and the school would not allow the machine, because then it's like an insult to the whole craft. So then I understood that I really loved the challenges myself to find a way, and that's how I also learned that art pieces could be the answer. So I brought them an impossible material. I brought them rubber, recycled rubber. And I knew that if I brought an impossible material, they wouldn't let me have nothing. they would help. So then they engaged with me and we brought the machine. That's also when I've learned that they need the resources. There was no machine in the village, so we brought something. And through the years, we began to make those art pieces. So it's recycled rubber embroidered. And I began to sell in the art market and so on and so on. And at the end, they've learned so much. One of them decided to open her own factory. And that's for me, it. Okay. So then the project is over, because like one among the 13 now is completely autonomous. And I need her more than she needs me, actually, which is the best. It's what I would like to do for every community I'm with. So yeah, that was the very first one.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we're probably hitting up against our time, but I'm just really struck. It's amazing because Rana Buruti just moderated a panel right now where she asked the question, you know, as you move through Arab design now, which if you haven't been, go quickly, it's downstairs. She's noticing that perhaps it's regional, that, you know, so many designers and artists are really engaging with craft or embedding craft in the foundation of their practice. But I think Jovana, you know, we're seeing that also happening in your library and with many designers in China and really across the globe. So I thank each of you as real leaders in this field and incredible practitioners and makers and a maker of a library and archive for being together on this panel today. A real joy to speak to each of you. And I can't wait for you all to continue the dialogue amongst yourselves too. So thank you, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.